Hey guys, how's it going? Connor here. I just wanted to try something a bit different. So last week I put a review up of the short story The Monsters by Robert Sheckley in Perilous Planets. And you know what? I just thought I'm going to share it with all of you. I'm going to read from this. And that way you guys can, form an opinion and share it in the comments below. So, yeah, the no editing. This is gonna all be rough. It's already pretty late at night, but I wanted to get something up and out. So here we go. The Monsters by Robert Sheckley. Cordevier and Hum stood on the rocky mountaintop, watching the new thing happen. Both felt rather good about it. It was undoubtedly the newest thing that had happened for some time. By the way the sunlight glints from it, Hum said, I'd say it is made of metal. I'll accept that, Cordevier said, but what holds it up in the air? They both stared intently down to the valley where the new thing was happening. A pointed object was hovering over the ground. From one end of it poured a substance resembling fire. It's balancing on the fire, Hum said. That should be apparent even to your old eyes. Cordevier lifted himself higher on his thick tail to get a better look. The object settled to the ground and the fire stopped. Shall we go down and have a closer look? Hum asked. All right, I think we have time. Wait, what day is this? Hum calculated silently, then said, the 5th day of Lugat. Damn, Cordevier said. I have to go home and kill my wife. It's a few hours before sunset, Hum said. I think you have time to do both. Cordevier wasn't sure. I'd hate to be late. Well then, you know how fast I am, Hum said. If it gets late, I'll hurry back and kill her myself. How about that? That's very decent of you. Cordevier thanked the younger man, and together they slithered down the steep mountainside. In front of the metal object, both men halted and stood on their tails. Rather bigger than I thought, Cordevier said, measuring the metal object with his eye. He estimated that it was slightly longer than their village and almost half as wide. They crawled a circle around it, observing that the metal was tooled, presumably by human tentacles. In the distance, the smaller sun had set. I think we had better get back, Cordevier said, noting the cessation of light. I still have plenty of time. Hum flexed his muscles complacently. Yes, but a man likes to kill his own wife. As you wish. They started off to the village at a brisk pace. In his house, Cordovier's wife was finishing supper. She had her back to the door, as etiquette required. Cordevier killed her with a single flying slash of his tail, dragged her body outside, and sat down to eat. After meal and meditation, he went to the gathering. Hum, with the impatience of youth, was already there, telling of the metal object. He probably bolted his supper, Cordevier thought with mild distaste. After the youngster had finished, Cordevier gave his own observations. The only thing he added to Hum's account was an idea that the metal object might contain intelligent beings. What makes you think so? Michel, another elder, asked. The fact that there was fire from the object as it came down, Cordevier said, joined to the fact that the fire stopped after the object was on the ground. Some being, I contend, was responsible for turning it off. Not necessarily, Michel said. The village men talked about it late into the night. Then they broke up the meeting, buried the various murdered wives, and went to their homes. Lying in the darkness, Cordevier discovered that he hadn't made up his mind as yet about the new thing. Presuming it contained intelligent beings, would they be moral? Would they have a sense of right and wrong? Cordevier doubted it and went to sleep. The next morning, every male in the village went to the metal object. This was proper, since the functions of males were to examine new things and to limit the female population. They formed a circle around it, speculating on what might be inside. I believe they will be human beings, Hum's elder brother Esktel said. Sorry, Esktel. Cordovier shook his entire body in disagreement. Monsters, more likely, he said. You should take into account. Not necessarily, Esktel said. Consider the logic of our physical development. A single focusing eye. But in the great outside, Cordovier said, there may be many strange races, most of them non-human. In the infinitude, still, Esktel put in, the logic of our... As I was saying, Cordovier went on, the chance is infinitesimal that they would resemble us. Their vehicle, for example, would we build, but on strictly logical ground, Escatil said. You can see that was the third time Cordovier had been interrupted. With a single movement of his tail, he smashed Escatil against the metal object. I'm not going to say the name again. He fell to the ground, dead. I have often considered my brother a bore, Boor, Hum said. What were you saying? But Cordovier was interrupted again. A piece of metal set in the greater piece of metal squeaked, turned and lifted, and a creature came out. Cordovier saw at once that he had been right. The thing that crawled out of the hole was twin-tailed. It was covered to its top with something partially metal and partially hide. And its colour, Cordovier shuddered. The thing was the colour of wet, flayed flesh. All the villagers had backed away, waiting to see what the thing would do. At first it didn't do anything. It stood on the metal surface, and the bulbous object that topped its body moved from side to side. But there was no accompanying body movements to give the gesture meaning. Finally, the thing raised both tentacles and made noises. Do you think it's trying to communicate? Michel asked softly. 3 more creatures appeared in the metal hole, carrying metal sticks in their tentacles. Their things made noises at each other. They are decidedly not human, Cordovier said firmly. The next question is, are they moral beings? One of the things crawled down the metal side and stood on the ground. The rest pointed their metal sticks at the ground. It seemed to be some sort of religious ceremony. Could anything so hideous be moral? Cordovier asked, his hide twitching with distaste. Upon closer inspection, the creatures were more horrible than could be dreamed. The bulbous object on their bodies just might be a head, Cordovier decided, even though it was unlike any head he had ever seen. But in the middle of that head, instead of a smooth, characterful surface, was a raised ridge. 2 round indentures were on either side of it, and 2 more knobs on either side of that. And in the lower half of the head, if such it was, a pale reddish slash ran across. Cordovier supposed this might be considered a mouth, with some stretching of the imagination. Uh, Nor was this all, Cordovier observed. Their things were so constructed as to show the presence of bone. When they moved their limbs, it wasn't a smooth, flowing gesture, the fluid motion of human beings. Rather, it was the jerky snap of a tree limb. God above! Gilrig, an intermediate-aged male, gasped. We should kill them and put them out of their misery. Other men seemed to feel the same way, and the villagers flowed forward. Wait, one of the youngsters shouted. Let's communicate with them, if such is possible. They might still be moral beings. The outside is wide. Remember, anything is possible. Cordovier argued for immediate extermination, but the villagers stopped and discussed it among themselves. Hum, with the characteristic bravado, floated up to the thing on the ground. Hello, Hum said. The thing said something. I can't understand it, Hum said, and started to crawl back. The creature waved its jointed tentacles, if they were tentacles, and motioned at one of the sons. He made a sound. Yes, it is warm, isn't it? Hum said cheerfully. The creature pointed at the ground and made another sound. We haven't had especially good crops this year, Hum said conversationally. The creature pointed at itself and made a sound. I agree, Hum said. You're as ugly as sin. Presently, the villagers grew hungry and crawled back to the village. Hum stayed and listened to the things making noises at him, and Cordevier waited nervously for Hum. You know, Hum said after he rejoined Cordevier, I think they want to learn our language, or want me to learn theirs. Don't do it, Cordevier said, glimpsing the misty edge of a great evil. I believe I will, Hum murmured. Together they climbed the cliffs back to the village. That afternoon, Cordevier went to the surplus female pen and formally asked a young woman if she would reign in his house for 25 days. Naturally, the woman accepted gratefully. On the way home, Cordevier met Hum going to the pen. Just killed my wife, Hum said superfluously, since why else would he be going to the surplus female stock? Are you going back to the creatures tomorrow? Cordevier asked. I might, Hum answered, if nothing new presents itself. The thing to find out is if they are moral beings or monsters. Right, Hum said, and slithered on. There was a gathering that evening. After supper, all the villagers agreed that the things were non-human. Cordevier argued strenuously that their very appearance belied any possibility of humanity. Nothing so hideous could have moral standards, a sense of right and wrong, and above all, a notion of truth. No way. The young men didn't agree, probably because there had been a dearth of new things recently. They pointed out that the metal object was obviously a product of intelligence. Intelligence axiomatically means standards of differentiation. Differentiation implies right and wrong. It was a delicious argument. Old Golel contradicted Erast and was killed by him. Mavert, Mavrt, in an unusual fit of anger for so placid an individual, killed the three Holian brothers, and was himself killed by Hum. He was feeling pettish. Even the surplus females could be heard arguing about it in their pen in a corner of the village. Weary and happy, the villagers went to sleep. The next few weeks saw no end of the argument. Life went on as much as usual, though. The women went out in the morning, gathered food, prepared it, and laid eggs. The eggs were taken to the surplus females to be hatched. As usual, about 8 females were hatched to every male. On the 25th day of each marriage, or a little earlier, each man killed his woman and took another. The males went down to the ship to listen to Hum learning the language. Then, when that grew boring, they returned to the customary wandering through hills and forests, looking for new things. The alien monsters stayed close to the ship, coming out only when Hum was there. 24 days after the arrival of the non-humans, Hum announced that he could communicate with them after a fashion. They say they come from far away, Hum told the village that evening. They say that they are bisexual, like us, and that they are humans, like us. They say there are reasons for their different appearance, but I couldn't understand that part of it. If we accept them as humans, Michel said, then everything they say is true. The rest of the villagers shook in agreement. They say that they don't want to disturb our life, but would be very interested in observing it. They want to come to the village and look around. I see no reason why not, one of the younger men said. No, Cordevier shouted. You are letting in evil. These monsters are insidious. I believe that they are capable of telling an untruth. The other elders agreed, but when pressed, Cordevier had no proof to back up this vicious accusation. After all, Syl pointed out, Just because they look like monsters, you can't take it for granted that they think like monsters as well. I can, Cordovi said, but he was outvoted. Hum went on. They have offered me, or us, I'm not sure which, various metal objects which they say will do various things. I ignored this breach of etiquette since I considered they didn't know any better. Cordovi nodded. The youngster was growing up. So proud. He was showing, at long last, that he had some manners. They want to come to the village tomorrow. No, Cordovi shouted, but the vote was against him. Oh, by the way, Hum said, as the meeting was breaking up, they have several females among them. The ones with the very red mouths are females. It will be interesting to see how the males kill them. Tomorrow is the 25th day since they came. The next day, their things came to the village, crawling slowly and laboriously over the cliffs. The villagers were able to observe the extreme brittleness of their limbs, the terrible awkwardness of their motions. No beauty whatsoever, Cordovier muttered, and they all look alike. In the village, the things acted without any decency. They crawled into huts and out of huts. They jabbered at the surplus female pen. They picked up eggs and examined them. They peered at the villagers through black things and shiny things. In mid-afternoon, Rantan and the elder decided it was about time he killed his woman. So he pushed the thing who was examining his hut aside and smashed his female to death. Instantly, two of the things started jabbering at each other, hurrying out of the hut. One had the red mouth of the female. He must have remembered it was time to kill his own woman, Hum observed. The villagers waited, but nothing happened. Perhaps, Rantan said, perhaps he would like someone to kill her for him. It might be the custom of their lands. Without further ado, Rantan slashed down the female with his tail. The male creature made a terrible noise and pointed a metal stick at Rantan. Rantan collapsed, dead. That's odd, Michelle said. I wonder if that denotes disapproval. Their things were in the metal object. 8 of them were in a tight little circle. One was holding the dead female, and the rest were pointing the metal sticks on all sides. Hum went up and asked them what was wrong. I don't understand, Hum said, after he spoke with them. They use words I haven't learned, but I gather that their motion is one of reproach. The monsters were backing away. Another villager, deciding it was about time, killed his wife. He was standing in the doorway. The group of monsters stopped and jabbered at each other. Then they motioned to Hum. Hum's body motion was incredulous after he had talked with them. If I understood right, Hum said, they are ordering us not to kill any more of our women. What? Cordovier and a dozen others shouted. I'll ask them again. Hum went back into conference with the monsters, who were waving metal sticks in their tentacles. That's right, Hum said. Without further preamble, he flipped his tail, throwing one of the monsters across the village square. Immediately, the others began to point their sticks while retreating rapidly. After they were gone, the villagers found that 17 males were dead. Hum, for some reason, had been missed. Now will you believe me? Cordovier shouted. The creatures told a deliberate untruth. They said they wouldn't molest us, and then they proceeded to kill 17 of us. Not only an immoral act, but a concerted death effort. It was almost past human understanding. A deliberate untruth, Cordovier shouted the blasphemy, sick with loathing. Men rarely discussed the possibility of anyone telling an untruth. The villagers were beside themselves with anger and revulsion once they realized the full concept of an untruthful creature. And added to that was the monster's concerted death effort. It was like the most horrible nightmare come true. Suddenly it became apparent that these creatures didn't kill females. Undoubtedly, they allowed them to spawn unhampered. The thought of that was enough to make a strong man retch. The surplus females broke out of their pens and, joined by their wives, demanded to know what was happening. When they were told, they were twice as indignant as the men, such being the nature of women. Kill them, the surplus females roared. Don't let them change our ways. Don't let them introduce immorality. It's true, Hiram said sadly. I should have guessed it. They must be killed at once, a female shouted. Being surplus, she had no name at present, but she made up for that in blazing personality. We women desire only to live moral, decent lives, hatching eggs in the pen until the time of marriage comes, and then 25 ecstatic days. How could we desire more? These monsters will destroy our way of life. They'll make us as terrible as they. Now do you understand? Cordovi screamed at the men. I warned you. I presented it to you, and you ignored me. Young men must listen to old men in time of crisis. In this rage, he killed two youngsters with the blow of his tail. The villagers applauded. Drive them out, Cordovi shouted, before they corrupt us. All the females rushed off to kill the monsters. They have death sticks, Hum observed. Do the females know? I don't believe so, Cordovi said. He was completely calm now. You'd better go and tell them. I'm tired, Hum said sulkily. I've been translating. Why don't you go? Oh, let's both go, Cordovi said, bored with the youngsters' adolescent moodiness. Accompanied by half the villagers, they hurried off after the females. They overtook them on the edge of the cliff that overlooked the object. Hum explained the death sticks while Cordovi considered the problem. Roll stones on them, he told the females. Perhaps you can break the middle of the object. The females started rolling stones down the cliffs with great energy. Some bounced off the middle of the object. Immediately, lines of red fire came from the object, and females were killed. The ground shook. Let's move back, Cordovi said. The females have it well in hand, and this shaky ground makes me giddy. Together with the rest of the males, they moved to a safe distance and watched the action. Women were dying right and left, but they were reinforced by women of other villages who had heard of the menace. They were fighting for their homes now, their rights, and they were fiercer than a man could ever be. The object was throwing fire all over the cliff, but the fire helped dislodge more stones which rained down on the thing. Finally, big fires came out of one end of the metal object. A landslide started, and the object got into the air just in time. It barely missed a mountain, then it climbed steadily until it was a little black speck against the larger sun, and then it was gone. That evening it was discovered that 53 females had been killed. This was fortunate since it had helped keep down the surplus female population. The problem would become even more acute now, since 17 males were gone in a single lump. Cordovi was feeling exceedingly proud of himself. His wife had been gloriously killed in the fighting, but he took another at once. We had better kill our wives sooner than every 25 days for a while, he said at the evening gathering, just until things would get back to normal. The surviving females, back in the pen, heard him and applauded wildly. I wonder where things have gone, Hum said, offering the question to the gathering. Probably a way to enslave some defenseless race, Cordovi said. Not necessarily, Michel put in, and the evening argument was on. So, I never thought I'd read that story a third time. It was so hard to get through that second time. But like I said, I wanted to try something different and share this little story with you guys, and you can hear it in all its wonderful glory. And comment on the actual story itself, your thoughts. Maybe, like I said in the review, there's some highbrow concepts I don't understand that went straight over my head because I said it just sucked. um, Anyway, hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, enjoy your reading, guys. Take it easy.